Have you ever wondered which president truly changed America the most? Not by popularity, not by speeches, but by real accomplishments that still shape your life today? From the man who refused to be king, to the one who wrote the rules of expansion, each president left behind something that built the country we live in. And if you stay till the end, you'll learn which modern president made a move that quietly affects everything, from your paycheck to your phone signal. So, let's start at the very beginning, the moment the United States needed someone to prove that democracy could actually work. George Washington. He could have been a king. He could have ruled forever. But instead he set the ultimate example. Power should end when the people say it does. He built the first cabinet, guided a nation of 13 confused states, and when his time came, he stepped down peacefully. That single decision created a tradition every president still follows: the peaceful transfer of power. John Adams. War was knocking on the door with France and everyone wanted to fight. Adams didn't. He chose peace knowing it could destroy his reputation. It did. But it also kept the fragile new country alive. Sometimes the bravest act isn't going to war, it's avoiding one. Thomas Jefferson. He doubled the size of the country overnight. The Louisiana Purchase gave America room to grow for a century. He believed the nation's power came from land and people, and he made sure it had plenty of both. James Madison. The father of the Constitution, proved the system he helped write could survive war. When the British burned Washington, D.C., he didn't run, he rebuilt. The War of 1812 wasn't America's prettiest victory, but it cemented the country's independence once and for all. James Monroe. He looked outward, drawing a line that still defines U.S. policy today, the Monroe Doctrine. It said to the world, no more European empires in the Americas. It was bold, risky, and ahead of its time, but it told every nation the U.S. wasn't just surviving anymore. It was leading. And just like that, the foundation was laid: freedom, peace, growth, survival, and power. 5 presidents. 5 building blocks for a new world. America was young and restless. The map was growing faster than the people could name the new states. Every president faced the same question: how big could this country really get before it broke apart? John Quincy Adams. Brilliant, stubborn, and often misunderstood. He expanded trade, built roads, and pushed science, founding national observatories and universities. He believed progress wasn't just about land. It was about knowledge. History remembers him as a man ahead of his time, one who saw America's potential before anyone else did. Andrew Jackson. The soldier-turned-president who ran on rage and revolution. He fought corruption, crushed the national bank, and made the government listen to the common man. But his legacy is complicated, strength and scars mixed together. Still, he changed politics forever, giving ordinary Americans a louder voice in government. Martin Van Buren. The economy collapsed the moment he took office. He didn't cause it, but he had to survive it. Van Buren's push for an independent treasury system helped stabilize the nation's finances, the early version of separating Wall Street from Washington. William Henry Harrison barely had a chance, 31 days. But his election proved one thing: campaign style mattered now. He used slogans, songs, and rallies, the first modern political campaign. Short presidency, long influence. John Tyler. Nobody expected him to lead, yet he set a precedent still followed today. When the president dies, the vice president becomes president, not just acts as one. It sounds obvious now, but Tyler made it official. James K. Polk. In just one term he expanded the United States coast to coast. Texas, Oregon, California, all under his watch. He made the dream of manifest destiny a reality, but at the cost of war with Mexico and growing tensions over slavery. Zachary Taylor. A general who became a reluctant leader. He opposed spreading slavery into new territories, even when his own party didn't agree. He didn't live to see it, but his stance cracked open the debate that would divide the nation. Millard Fillmore. He tried to keep peace through compromise. The Compromise of 1850 delayed the Civil War, but only delayed it. Still, it gave the nation a few more fragile years to prepare for what was coming. Franklin Pierce and James Buchanan both faced the impossible: a country splitting in half. They couldn't stop it. But their failures made one truth clear: the next president would have to fight not for land, but for the soul of the country. Abraham Lincoln. He walked into chaos and refused to let it end in destruction. Lincoln's biggest accomplishment wasn't just ending slavery, it was holding America together. He turned a divided nation into one that could rise again. And through the Emancipation Proclamation, he didn't just save the Union, he redefined what freedom meant. 1 century after independence, America had grown from 13 states to a continental power. But every mile of progress came with a cost. The next challenge? Rebuilding a nation that had torn itself apart. The war had ended, but the wounds hadn't. America was one country again, at least on paper. Now it needed leaders who could rebuild what the Civil War had broken, and guide a new industrial age that was changing everything. Andrew Johnson. He inherited Lincoln's burden, a shattered nation. Johnson's biggest act was pushing through the first steps of Reconstruction, readmitting the Southern states back into the Union. He faced impossible opposition and even impeachment, but his presidency set the stage for how America would heal, painfully but steadily. Ulysses S. Grant. The hero of the Civil War became a president determined to fight a new kind of war, corruption. He enforced civil rights laws, crushed the Ku Klux Klan, and worked to protect newly freed Black Americans. Not everything went right under his watch, but his courage to stand against hate made him one of the most underrated presidents of his time. Rutherford B. He ended military reconstruction, a controversial move, but restored political order and trust in a nation still divided. His commitment to merit-based hiring in government began the long journey toward fairer politics. He showed that rebuilding wasn't just about armies, it was about integrity. James Garfield. Though his presidency was cut short by assassination, Garfield's push for civil service reform ignited a national demand for honest government. His tragic death led directly to one of the biggest changes in American politics, ending the spoils system. Chester A. Arthur. Few expected much from him, but he shocked everyone. He signed the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act, professionalizing government jobs. In a time when loyalty often mattered more than skill, Arthur's reform made fairness the new standard. Grover Cleveland. A president twice and not in a row. He fought corruption like a man on a mission. He vetoed wasteful bills, protected taxpayer money, and reminded Washington that honesty mattered more than politics. Benjamin Harrison. He made America competitive on a global scale. Under him, the U.S. pushed for new trade policies, modernized the Navy, and admitted 6 new states into the Union. That's more than any president before or after him. William McKinley. He brought the country into the modern age. Under his leadership, the U.S. became an international power after the Spanish-American War, gaining territories like Puerto Rico and the Philippines. McKinley's era marked the beginning of America's global influence. Theodore Roosevelt. Then came the bull moose himself, energy, reform, and power all rolled into one. He broke up corporate monopolies, protected nature with national parks, and made America believe again in progress. Roosevelt's biggest accomplishment? Transforming the presidency into a force for the people. He didn't just lead the nation, he redefined what leadership meant. By the dawn of the 20th century, the U.S. had evolved from a recovering nation into an industrial superpower. But prosperity brought new challenges: greed, inequality, and the question of what America stood for as it entered the modern world. By now, America was a machine, loud, growing, unstoppable. But power without purpose can lose its direction. The presidents of the early 1900s had to decide what kind of world America would lead, one driven by profit or one guided by progress. William Howard Taft. He followed in Roosevelt's giant footsteps, literally and politically. Though often overshadowed, Taft strengthened the justice system by breaking more monopolies than any president before him. He believed in law over drama, turning Roosevelt's bold ideas into lasting policy. And even after leaving the White House, he kept serving the country as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Woodrow Wilson. An academic who became a wartime leader. He led America through World War I and shaped the world that followed. His creation of the League of Nations, even if America didn't join, laid the foundation for global diplomacy and what would later become the United Nations. He proved that America could fight with power and still dream of peace. Warren G. Harding. He promised a return to normalcy after the chaos of war. Under his watch, the economy boomed and America turned inward, but scandals in his administration tarnished his name. Still, his focus on economic recovery stabilized a nation exhausted from global conflict. Calvin Coolidge, the quiet president who believed that the business of America is business. He cut taxes, reduced debt, and oversaw one of the greatest economic expansions in U.S. history. His calm, conservative approach gave America a rare moment of peace and prosperity, until the crash came. Herbert Hoover. When the Great Depression hit, the nation was blindsided. Hoover tried to fix it with traditional methods, business loans, limited aid, but the collapse was too big, too fast. Still, his earlier work feeding millions in Europe during World War I proved his humanitarian heart, even if his presidency ended in tragedy. Franklin D. Roosevelt. Then came the man who rebuilt not just the economy but the nation's spirit. FDR faced the Great Depression with bold action. The New Deal. Millions got jobs, banks reopened, and hope returned. Then came World War II, and he led America through it with courage and resolve. He redefined the role of government and turned the U.S. into the world's leading power. 12 years, 4 terms, one unforgettable legacy, leadership in the hardest of times. By the end of FDR's era, America had survived its darkest decade and emerged as a global superpower. But the world wasn't done changing, and neither was the nation he helped save. The world had changed forever. 2 world wars had left nations scarred and divided. And now, America wasn't just another country, it was the country. But with power came pressure, and the next presidents had to prove that leadership wasn't only about winning wars, it was about keeping peace. Harry Truman. He made one of the hardest decisions in history, ending World War II with atomic bombs on Japan. It was brutal, but it ended the war and reshaped global politics overnight. Then he rebuilt Europe through the Marshall Plan and stood firm against the spread of communism. Truman's boldness created the foundation of the modern world order. Dwight D. Eisenhower. The general who led armies in war now built peace through progress. He launched the interstate highway system, connecting the entire nation. He balanced military strength with calm diplomacy, keeping the Cold War from turning hot. Eisenhower's steady hand made growth and stability the heartbeat of post-war America. John F. Kennedy. The youngest elected president, all charm, hope, and vision. But behind the charisma came courage. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, one wrong move could have ended the world. Kennedy's cool judgment avoided nuclear war. He also inspired a generation to look upward, literally, with the goal of reaching the moon. His legacy was short, but it burned bright. Lyndon B. Johnson. After Kennedy's death, he carried the torch forward. He declared a war on poverty and signed the Civil Rights Act, ending segregation and protecting voting rights. It was a moment of transformation, America facing its own shadow and choosing equality. Johnson's Great Society programs expanded education, healthcare, and opportunity, shaping the social fabric for decades. By the mid-1960s, America was powerful, wealthy, and more connected than ever before. But that power came with doubt, war abroad, protests at home, and a question that would define the next era. Could the nation live up to the ideals it promised? The optimism of the 1960s was fading. America was powerful but divided. Protests, scandals, and distrust filled the headlines. The next presidents would face an impossible balance: restore faith at home while defending freedom abroad. Richard Nixon. A man of brilliance and controversy. He opened the door to China, easing decades of isolation and reshaping global politics. He also ended America's direct involvement in the Vietnam War. But the Watergate scandal overshadowed everything, a reminder that power without honesty always collapses. Still, his diplomacy forever changed how the world viewed the U.S. Gerald Ford. He never ran for president, yet stepped in to heal a wounded nation. His biggest accomplishment wasn't war or policy, it was forgiveness. By pardoning Nixon, he put country over politics and helped America move forward from crisis. Ford proved that leadership sometimes means doing the unpopular thing for the right reason. Jimmy Carter. A soft-spoken outsider who focused on peace and human rights. His crowning achievement, the Camp David Accords, a peace treaty between Egypt and Israel that ended decades of hostility. He may have faced economic troubles and political challenges, but his moral clarity redefined America's image abroad. Ronald Reagan. The great communicator. He brought confidence back to a country that had lost its spark. Reagan cut taxes, fought inflation, and stood tall against the Soviet Union. His firm stance, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall," symbolized the end of the Cold War era. He didn't just rebuild the economy, he restored America's belief in itself. George H.W. Bush, a man of diplomacy and calm strength. He managed the end of the Cold War without chaos and led a global coalition in the Gulf War that pushed Iraq out of Kuwait. His leadership kept the world stable during one of history's most delicate transitions. Bush's quiet confidence reminded everyone that true strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just acts. By the early 1990s, America stood unchallenged, rich, safe, and free. But a new century was coming, and with it, challenges no army or missile could stop. The Cold War was over. The Berlin Wall had fallen. And for the first time in decades, America stood alone as the world's superpower. But peace brought new problems. Technology, globalization, and politics itself were changing faster than ever before. Bill Clinton. He led during one of the strongest economic booms in U.S. history. Balanced budgets, low unemployment, and the rise of the internet defined his era. His biggest accomplishment was turning a budget deficit into a surplus, the first in generations. He helped modernize the economy for a new digital world, proving that peace and prosperity could go hand in hand. George W. Bush. His presidency began in calm and changed in chaos. The 9/11 attacks shook the nation and the world. Bush's response, the War on Terror, reshaped global politics, security, and surveillance. At home, he founded the Department of Homeland Security to protect Americans from future threats. Though controversial, his leadership in crisis defined a generation. Barack Obama. The first African-American president in history. He inherited a financial crisis and faced it head-on. Through the Affordable Care Act, he expanded healthcare to millions and stabilized a collapsing economy. His diplomacy brought global respect, from the Iran nuclear deal to the mission that ended Osama bin Laden. Obama's message of hope and change revived faith in what America could be. Donald Trump. A businessman turned political disruptor. He reshaped trade policy, renegotiated international deals, and pushed for America First economics. His Tax Cuts and Jobs Act sparked short-term economic growth, and his foreign policy forced long-ignored global issues back into focus. Controversial, outspoken, and polarizing, but undeniably impactful on how politics are fought in the modern age. Joe Biden. After years of division, his presidency aimed to restore calm and rebuild stability. His biggest accomplishment so far, the massive infrastructure bill, is set to modernize roads, bridges, and broadband across the country. He also led one of the fastest vaccine rollouts in history during the COVID-19 pandemic, helping reopen a shaken world. Biden's leadership focuses on quiet rebuilding, a reminder that progress often happens without headlines. 2.5 centuries. 46 presidents. From revolution to recession, from muskets to microchips, each one left a mark. Some were heroes, some were flawed, but all were part of the same ongoing story, the story of a nation constantly reinventing itself. And if you've watched till now, here's your reward, perspective. Because every name on this list wasn't just a leader. They were chapters in the same American experiment, the idea that power belongs not to kings or empires, but to the people who dare to keep trying. So, what did we really learn from 2.5 centuries of leadership? That no president was perfect. Some changed the world. Some nearly broke it. But every one of them left behind a decision that shaped the country we wake up in today. From Washington's restraint, to Lincoln's resolve, to Roosevelt's courage and Kennedy's calm, America's story isn't about one man or one moment. It's about endurance. It's about the belief that even in chaos, leadership can make things better, or at least worth fighting for. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You now understand the entire journey of America's presidents in one sitting. That's your reward, perspective. Because history isn't just about remembering names. It's about recognizing the impact of choices, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Thank you for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. It helps the channel grow. And subscribe if you want to keep exploring history in simple, fascinating stories that make sense of the past and the present. Because next time, we'll uncover every presidential first in U.S. history, explained. Until then, Keep learning, stay curious, and never forget. Every name in history was once just a person who decided to lead.